Welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to try to clean this lens. It's an Industar-22, and it came along with this Zorky one. The Zorky has already been serviced, so now it's time for the lens. It's probably one of the most basic lenses you can possibly service. Lenses that are decent, at least. It's actually quite a nice lens, a copy of Light's Elmar, collapsible, and I think it really suits this design. Okay, so the focusing movement is quite stiff, and it's not a fluent move. So the old grease is probably in a very rough shape. Actually, if I scrape a bit of here, see, it's almost solid. Okay, I'll try to divide the entire assembly and reassembly in two parts. So the first part will be the disassembly. Maybe I'll cover the tools needed and the extra bits like grease and stuff. And the second part will be the reassembly, and I will try to take it apart completely, so aperture included. The aperture is moving. It's moving. There is no oil on the blades, but the movement is not nice. So it's not as smooth as it could be. Okay, so the first thing will be to remove this flange, so the part that actually gets mounted on the camera, from the optical block. And this is in fact the helicoid, so this is where the focusing is done. So in order to be able to put it back together correctly, we will have to take some care with the exit point, because the helicoids have multiple entry points. Helicoids are not like regular screws. This longer screw is the movement limiter, so this is the close focus position, no, the infinity position. When this tab gets in this groove, and it should lock in place. This one is not really locking because I think there is some wear on this part. And this screw is the limiting screw for the close focusing position. So when the mark is aligned just after the 1 meter point. All right. So the little screw. Actually, before I start, what do I need? Well, one screwdriver. This was adjusted, so it's a 3.5 flat tip that I adjusted to fit Russian screws. I've been servicing a lot of Russian cameras lately, and there are a lot of screws that are very narrow, so the slit is very narrow and they are not very deep. That means that most regular screwdrivers won't really fit. The screws are very soft and you can easily mess them up. So this is screwdriver number 1. I will also need a very fine screwdriver. This one is a 1.5 by 40 flat screwdriver that I also adjusted in this this part just below the tip. I narrowed it, so this diameter is smaller than it used to be. For reference, this is also a 1.5 by 40, and this is the difference. And I did this in order to be able to adjust the rangefinder on some of these cameras, because the bigger one simply did not fit. See, I mean, it looks like it fits, but it doesn't. So I had to adjust this one. And this will be needed to access one little screw through this hole. It might not look like a hole, but it is a hole, and this is probably just a lot of gunk. Yep. A blower. I should get a bigger one, but a blower is a blower, it works. Some dental picks. I've got 2 of them. This one is the one I use most. Okay, tweezers. Doesn't really matter what kind of tweezers. The fine tipped ones are the best because the screws are quite small. Maybe some other screwdriver. This is a 2.0 by 40. I don't really remember if I needed that or not. We'll see. Okay. Then we will need something to clean everything with. I use lots of lighter fluid. I also use alcohol, isopropylic alcohol, for cleaning the elements, the lens elements. This one has really clean optics, just some specks of dust inside, but no fungus, no haze. So the optics is the optics are clean. Then we will need some grease for the helicoid. This is a lithium and Teflon white grease. It's very soft. And I also need, I'm not really sure if this is the correct way to do it, but it works at least for now and for me, and according to the knowledge that I have at this moment. This is also a Teflon grease, but it's very thick. It's used in telescopes, the telescope mounts. I usually use this for rings like this one to have a dampening effect. All right. What else? Maybe an ultrasound cleaner, maybe, we'll see. With the Russian cameras and lenses, I always fear that the ultrasonic cleaner will take all the letterings out, so all the paint in the letterings. Of course, you can always paint them afterwards, but if I would have to paint these ones that are on a rough surface, that would be a bit more tricky. So I might just as well try to clean everything with a toothbrush and dish soap. It usually works just fine, except for the helicoid. The helicoid will require intensive cleaning. We'll get to that in a moment. And I think that's about it. Lots of Q-tips, lots of rags, and this one. Okay, so simple cotton rags. Ideally something that is not producing a lot of lint. Some microfibers, and yeah, we'll see if we need anything else. Toothpicks, lots of them. All right, so that screw is done, and now you can simply unscrew the flange. and it will separate at some point. Now, first of all, when the lens is in this position, so in the infinity position, there is no gap between the flange and the rest of the lens. See, no gap. As you focus towards the closest distance, this gap gets larger and larger and larger. So the first thing to note is that on this position there has to be no gap. Then we'll need to memorize the point of separation, and I will take as a mark, I will take the infinity mark. So slowly it should separate around 4 meters, if I remember correctly. Yep. So it wasn't 4, it was 5. If I put it back on 5, it should line up correctly. Alright, so 5 meters is the mark. This is the flange, and inside the grooves of the helicoid there's a lot of old grease that needs to be cleaned, and the first step is to take as much as possible out with a toothpick. And then, see, it's all in a very solid state. Then I will clean it in successive steps with lighter fluid, dishwasher, until everything is cleaned, and pretty much until the two surfaces of the helicoids run smoothly without anything, so they run dry but smoothly. This will be done off camera, so to speak. Alright, next step is to actually separate the optical block from the actual body of the lens. Now inside this area there is some sort of a light baffle, this black thing. It's like a cylinder, a black cylinder, that you simply slowly pull out, and it has to go back in with this lip pointing towards the back of the lens. Alright, so far we have the flange, the little screw, and the light baffle. Okay, now in order to actually separate the two pieces, we will have to remove one screw here that keeps the inside, so the actual lens elements or the lens block fixed to the lens barrel. Now the lens barrel can move around unrestrained unless the lens is extended. Okay, so the position doesn't matter. You can simply twist it around. So we have one screw here and another screw here, and this is some sort of a felt that I think its purpose is to dampen this movement. So when you push it back, when you collapse the lens, it will not hit metal on metal. And I will try to take this little screw out without actually removing this felt. You can remove it and glue it afterwards, but they are old, they might be brittle, and they have paper backing, so you can't really clean them, wash them, or anything like that. And now I will need the little screwdriver. Although this hole looks larger. Oh yeah, it is larger. I did recently a FED, the equivalent, that had a smaller hole, so this one didn't fit. putting it back is the real trick, or the real tricky part. So this extremely small screw goes here, and now this front bezel can be unscrewed. The idea is that when this is a regular screw, so it doesn't matter how you put it on back on, because it should always align with the hole on the barrel. So the hole on the ring with the hole on the barrel. Okay. Now it will not unscrew any further because it gets stuck on this ring, the aperture ring. So we'll need to unscrew this little screw. Come on, little screw. The little screw doesn't really want to come out. Well, I guess this one was just a bit too wide, and it got stuck in the actual hole. So I thought I stripped the screw. Damn. Yeah, it's having the right screwdriver, so the right size of screwdriver is extremely important with these cameras and lenses. All right, now what else do we need to take out in order to remove the optical block? Well, inside here there are two rings. The outer ring keeps everything in place, so that's the one that I'll have to take out. The inner ring only keeps in place the posterior lens group. Oh yes, and for this you need a spanner. Doesn't really matter what kind of spanner, but you need to have a spanner. I have this one, and I also have this one. You can find them on eBay. And they are essential to opening up various rings and stuff like that. And I usually just start it out with the spanner, and depending on where exactly I'm working, I might as well continue the unscrewing motion with something else. But in this case it's okay, it has no room to slip. There you go. This one actually is a bit different than the FED that I worked on. That FED, on that FED I had to remove this. On the Industar it seems that I don't have to remove this, or better said, I didn't have to remove it because it's already removed. But since we are doing a complete disassembly, we are going to do a complete disassembly. Okay, now inside the barrel you might find a spacer. Don't lose it, or the lens will never focus correctly again. Okay, so it's something like this. Spacer, the barrel, and the other part of the helicoid that also has inside this felt thing that's responsible for the dampened move of the two parts. Okay, so I think I will try to clean this without submerging it in water. Otherwise I would have to take this one out, and it's not, you simply pry it out with a sharp instrument. It's not difficult to be taken out, it's not difficult to put it back, but I think it's safer if you don't mess with it. Okay, this is the ring that keeps everything in place, and then we have the actual optics and the aperture. The rear element simply unscrews. Okay, and now you can clean both sides of the glass of the lenses. It has a yellowish tint, so that's probably part of the P. The red P stands for coated. So the Fed certainly did not have this yellowish tint. So yeah, probably this is the coating. I'll put it aside. I'll clean it a bit later on. Okay, and next would be to take this off. Now this aluminium cylinder is the actual thing that controls the aperture. So you twist this and the aperture opens and closes, and it's held in place by two screws, one here and one here. In this case they are both are at 90 degrees to the left and to the right to this index mark. So this is the index mark for the aperture, and at the same time they are 180 degrees from one another. So in essence this means that you can put this controller ring or little barrel, you can either put it like this with the point, in this case the marking in this case pointing to the left, or the other way around with the mark pointing to the right, in which case when you reassemble the lens it will point to the other side, so opposite to the actual aperture scale. So what I'm going to do is make a mark for the widest aperture. So for wide open I will make a mark on this aperture barrel, let's call it like that, according to the mark, to the mark on the ring. I'm sorry, I'm a bit tired and this is a bit confusing, but the essence is what matters. So a mark that is visible actually. Alright, so now I know that I have to put this back with the little black arrow pointing towards my scratch mark. And now I can remove this, but before removing this I will also remove the front optics. It also has two retainer rings. This one keeps only the front element in place, while this one probably keeps the entire front group in place. So let's see. I think I need something pointy, right? Because the gap is too small. I could also use these pliers. So I have a pliers that goes like this, that I also adjusted to make like two little slots, two little, I don't know, slots, let's call them slots for this kind of rings. And yeah, it seems to be okay, so they fit. All right, that was easy. And now let's be elegant and use a toothpick. Okay, so this is the front lens group. And now this is the aperture mechanism, just a little barrel, all the leaves inside. In theory, I could leave it like this and just clean it, but I'm always a bit afraid of taking the leaves apart. Nah, why not? Let's do this. Let's do this. So this is a 0.23 by 1.5. In theory, it should be pretty much the same as this one, maybe just a bit wider. Okay, this is one screw and this is the other, and they are different. One is longer than the other, so I will make an S. I will scratch an S for the short screw. And this actually unscrews. Okay, so it's also different from the FED. On the FED it's simply lifted. And I will keep an eye on my initial mark So that was the mark for the arrow, and see where in respect to the mark it will separate. It's probably okay, so like a finger, the width of a finger to the right of the mark. Okay, it might be a bit more challenging than I initially expected, but that's okay. It's too late for feeling sorry now. This is the ring that controls the aperture blades, and now I need to see how they are put in place, so which is the order, and they go like this. So one blade, I'll try to take one blade out. This is one blade, then the next one comes on top to the right, and so on until the circle is completed. And it has, each blade has a round end and a more squarish end. The squarish end is, I would say the squarish end must connect to the holes, but this one has the pin to the opposite side, so let's see. Yeah, the round end actually connects to the holes. So they are like this. And that means that each blade is put like this. So the pin of the round end goes inside the hole, and then the next one gets on top of it, like this, and so on. The tricky part will be putting back the last three leaves, the last three blades, but we'll see. We'll see how it goes. With a bit of luck, I'll get it correctly from the first try. Alright, this is it. This is the entire lens taken apart. Next step is to clean everything really well and start putting it back in part 2. For the cleaning of the elements, I will try to not use alcohol or lighter fluid in some parts like this barrel, because there are some zones of paint inside that can wash out. Yeah, we'll see how it goes. Alright, so I've got the aperture mechanism back in place. I did not put the grease yet. I wanted to make sure it works. Regarding putting the aperture blades back, so each blade, once you know which tip of the blade, so every blade has it's like a semi-lunar shape, and it has, maybe I should draw this, right, because it's easier and it would make more sense. I think it would make more sense. Anyhow, so each blade is like this. It's not like this, it's a lot prettier. Anyhow, so it has a round end and a squarish end. It's less round, let's call it less round. And each blade has, I don't know if, yeah, I should maybe draw here, and maybe I should use a pencil. Alright, so this is the blade. It has a round end and a less round end, and on each of the two ends it has a pin. One pin is on one side, the other pin is on the other side. What we already knew was the fact that it should go, so this pin points towards the camera, right? And this is the round end. The blade was going to be put upside down, so pin down and round end to the left. So it looked something like this. This was the barrel, and this was the first blade. Now, the second blade, of course, has to go on top of the first and to the left, because these are the holes for the blades. So the next one goes on top, and so on. When you get to the last three blades, in this case the number 3 from last still had its hole in the mechanism partially visible, so placing that one was easy. But the next two holes are totally covered up, so you can't see them because the other blades are already in place. And that's the tricky part, because you actually have to somehow get the tip so in order to reach this hole, which is already covered by this blade, okay, you have to take the second last blade in this case and somehow get its tip, the round tip, beneath this one, and then slowly push it. When I'm pushing it, I always try to push it from the pin that's is sticking up. So slowly push on the pin until the blades follows the curvature of the casing and falls into position. The problem is that you can't really turn it around to see if the pins are engaging correctly. But once it falls into the hole and it engages, you can actually grab that pin. So these are the pins that go into the holes, and these are the free pins that will engage with the slots in this disc. and you can grab the pin with the tweezer and slightly and slowly move it left, right, left, right. If it resists the movement, it most likely means that it's engaging in its hole. So that's the strategy for the last two blades, or last three blades, depending on lens. Of course, if you have a lens with, I don't know, 15 blades or 20 blades or 100 blades, it will be a lot more difficult. Okay. Once all blades were in place, I dropped this ring inside and slowly moved it around. So I slowly jiggled it until all the pins engaged the slots in the ring, and then, keeping it still like this, I screwed in the control ring, so the aluminium tube, and it goes all the way in like here, and then if you take it back, see, until the arrow points to the scribe mark, then that will be the point where the two screws can go in, and this is the S mark for the short screw. Alright, and now what I need to do is take this one out again and use some grease. Otherwise, you can accidentally move the aperture setting just by touching it. So no, that's a no-go. Alright, now in order to not lose all the blades, because this control ring inside is only kept in position by the two little screws. So in order to keep them in place, I will try to somehow stick my finger inside and use a slight downward pressure so everything stays in place. That's the theory. I'll get this one ready, and I will also get this one ready. So this is my my brush that I use to put grease on stuff, and for the time being it has some white helicoid grease. I will just simply wipe it off, and then I'm going to use the telescope grease. Okay, let's hope everything will go according to the plan. So, short one. Long one. Because if it doesn't go according to the plan and I move the blades, I will have to start all over again. Okay, and now I'm going to apply the grease on the threads from here to here. Actually, it doesn't really matter, because when I'm putting this back on, it will go all the way across, I suppose. Now, I'm never really sure how much is enough, how much is too much, how much is not enough. So I'll just add enough from in my point of view, and then wipe the excess off if it's too much. But anyway, the amount of grease that you need to use on rings like this or helicoids or anything lens related is very small, so probably a jar like this one, it will probably last a couple of years depending on how many lenses you try to service. All right, let's see. Much better. Okay, so now I need to unscrew it until, where is my little mark? This is the mark, so this is the wide open position, and I need to take it back until the arrow points to the mark. Obviously you can't see what I'm seeing, but you'll have to trust me. Okay, and then without having greasy hands, because I wouldn't want any grease on the aperture blades, I am going to replace the screws. There is no S mark on this one, so it must be the long one. Come on. Well, something moved. No! Oh no! Well, yeah, disaster. Well, not quite. Not quite. Almost disaster happened, but apparently all the blades are still... No, they are not. Okay, so yeah. Oh, I was so close. Here we go again. This one will be left in place. I don't have any more reasons to take it out. I will only take out the control ring and start placing the blades again. All right. Yeah, that's the problem with the leaves of the aperture. You might get them first try one day and spend an hour the other day. Well, they are all in place. It works very smoothly. The arrow and the mark align, and pretty much where you put it, that's the place it will sit. So yeah, it's okay. It's okay. Time to do some reassembly. I also need to clean these, right? Yep, I do. Then we will start with new gloves, just in case I have oil on the old ones or grease. Okay, so there's the ring, and then you could use a lens sucker like this, or in the case of such simple lenses you can just turn them around. This element should be a convex element on the front side and and flat on the back side. So yeah, this is flat, this is convex. Okay, my phone died. Anyhow, I eventually got the barrel inside this part of the helicoid. It's surprisingly difficult to get it to pass through the felt ring. Anyhow, we can now go back and put everything in place. So this one goes first, right? this one with a little dot. Okay, I think this is it. Yes, this is it. Okay, nice. Then the retainer. And finally, finally, come on, come on, come on, come on. Okay, now the mark is perfectly aligned to the 3.5 value of the aperture. And finally, this little asshole that hopefully will come on, come on. Okay, the idea is this ring has to be perfectly aligned with the hole in this barrel. Okay. Otherwise, the tip of the screw will never engage. So I don't know, a quarter of a millimeter more to the right or to the left, and it's game over. And I had to use this magnifier in order to realize that I was slightly off. So that was the reason why it refused to work. I'll clean all these marks when I'm done, because we are close, finally close. This one goes in here. You simply push it in, and now all we need to do now is grease the helicoid and put it all back together. this is a bit much, but I'm going to give it a couple of turns and then wipe the excess. I'm not concerned about the entry point right now, so all right. So infinity mark 5, infinity at 5, and that's it. That is it. Come on. Nice. Unfortunately, it doesn't catch because that little latch is worn, so not much I can do, but otherwise the focusing is very nice. The aperture control is very nice, and that is that. That is that finally. Okay, thank you for watching. Next time probably also a Russian lens. In this case, one Industar-21. We'll see how that goes.